You're listening to a Very Spatial podcast, episode 760, May 11th, 2025.
Hello and welcome to our Very Spatial podcast. I'm Jesse.
I'm Sue.
I'm Barb.
And this is Frank.
And this week we're going to be talking about various things, including...
So we're going to be talking about, we're in FeedSpot's top 15 geography podcasts, along with many other great podcasts that you should check out, and many that aren't on that list, but there's so many more now than there used to be even within the past year. We enjoy watching across the whole variety of what's geography and geospatial. So check them out.
So there's some really cool podcasts on that list, and if you haven't had a chance and you're a podcast person, obviously you're listening hard, so you are at some level. There's some great stuff, and there's a lot of different perspectives on there. Interesting enough, Esri's podcast, which a lot of people, I think, in my opinion, falsely assume is like a, sales thing. Mostly it isn't. There's a lot of great stuff there, but there's, geography, coffee and geography, which I love, and it's lots of stuff. Please take a chance, take some time to go out and listen and give these different podcasts a chance.
Yeah, and I would say these are all great. There's also lots of specialty ones. That's what always was one of the great things about podcasting, even when we got started, right, is that there might be a little niche that you're super into, and there's likely a cool podcast out there for that as well.
And I also want to make a shout out to anyone that has a geography podcast to apply for the Signal Awards. Frank and I are judges again this summer to, go out there and put yourself out there to get recognized.
On to the news.
First up in the news, a milestone for a very famous documentary filmmaker, a huge career at the BBC, David Attenborough. So if you've not heard of David Attenborough,
You've been
his
under a
great
rock.
series, The Life Collect.
You need to get out of underneath the rocks.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, just tons of series over his career, and amazing cinematography in all of them, but the different Life on Earth collections and all kinds of other things as well. So 99 years. Wow, amazing.
70 years in broadcasting.
Yeah, and so just to give you an indication of how important he is, we didn't actually say his proper name. It's actually Sir David Attenborough. He is a Knight of the Crown. Very important.
I was thinking about this. I was thinking about how long he's been introducing people to, just the wonders of the earth. And I thought, I wonder what his impact is when you compare it to what people talk about when they say, the impact that seeing the earth from space had on people. And I would imagine that they both had a huge impact on how people view the world around them.
Makes me want to go back and watch a few. Next up in the news, a little bit of remote sensing news. So NASA's been giving updates on their next mission in the very storied and successful Landsat series. So that mission is Landsat Next, which I believe is still on track for a 2030-31 launch. But there's some things that are going to be different from previous Landsat. So Landsat, of course, has been evolving throughout its missions. Currently, 8 and 9 are orbiting and capturing imagery with their OLI, I think is in both of them, the Operational Land Imager.
And 7 is TM+.
I don't know. I was like not finding references to 7, so I have to find a status that maybe it's been pulled offline again. But in any event, some of the information that's been coming out recently about the new sensor that's going to be on Landsat Next, and also Landsat Next, I believe they're planning to launch 3 on the same launch vehicle. So they're going to have kind of a mini constellation going on. But the kind of interesting thing that they've been highlighting in recent updates is that the sensor is going to have an additional 15 bands from the 11 spectral bands that are currently on 8 and 9. So that means they're going to cover more of those parts of the spectrum that help us understand certain phenomena on the surface of the Earth. So if you know a little bit about it, I'm not going to go into it too much, but some of the bands they're highlighting is, first of all, they're going to kind of revamp some of the existing bands. The sensor, of course, will have higher resolution. So I think it's down maybe 10, 20 meters from the traditional Landsat 30. And then they're looking to try to help provide data for lots of different phenomena on the surface of the Earth. So, for example, they highlighted their band 6 and 7. That will be in the new sensor. And they're looking at water and looking at things like the color of pigment and algae blooms and stuff. So that's one example. Any other good ones? Bands 5, 9, and 10. So near infrared is also a really important one. So They'll have band 5 handling near infrared, and then they're also going to have some others relating to vegetation and being able to look at issues related to plants like stress and stuff like that. And then some shortwave infrared on 19 to 21. So remember, 26 bands total, 15 new ones. So lots more stuff to do. So now bands that will look at soil and plants and things like that. So check out the article. And if you want to go look at the mission status for Landsat Next, I think just amazing updates.
Oh, also in the what they're going to be looking at is snowpack. And it's been really exciting over the past few years how much more we're learning about snowpack and things like glaciers. So it'll be interesting to see what this more look at subtle variations is going to reveal that we didn't know before about what's happening there.
So we have a sensor, right? Going from OLI, I can't say it today. As Sue said, going from OLI to whatever this one will be called.
I think it's LandIS. I think I saw
LandIS?
that somewhere.
So LIS. So we'll see what it is called. But it's one of those things that really like OLI, really annoyed whenever I had to go from knowing which bands things were in the TM to the OLI. So this will be annoying as well, but really good reason to be annoyed because more data, better.
Well, yeah, because Ols got used to 7 bands and then like, oh, wait, it's 11 in OLI and now 26, right? So, and some of them are, I think the numbering is going to change slightly for some of the existing bands.
Just like it did with
just like it did.
TM
So,
to OLI.
yeah. I had to like think, what was 7? Was 5 enhanced thematic mapper too, or was that just 7? Because of course the early ones were multi-spectral.
4 and 5 were TM and 7 was ETM.
Yeah, so to learn the names.
But yeah, so I don't know.
Next up in the news, the saga around the Gulf of Mexico / Gulf of America continues.
Nope. There is no slash. You can keep going though.
Fair enough. The Mexico has sued Google over changing the Google Maps to say Gulf of America. Their argument is that this was a decree by the United States that really only affects the geographic names information system or service, depending on who you ask. And it really only affects those pieces of the Gulf of Mexico that are right up against the United States. And the Gulf of Mexico is much bigger than that. And in fact, much more of it covers Mexico. So they're erroneously renaming this on what amounts to an international system. That's the too long to read bit of it. The Mexican president says she has already filed a lawsuit. I'm not sure. It was unclear in the article, and I think it's unclear from the president where, with who. Is this in the Mexican legal system, U.S. international court? I don't know. But the point is that these name changes have political ramifications, and they are oftentimes contested, and they will continue to be contested. So we may end up with a unfortunately, according to, I agree with Jesse, but unfortunately we may end up in certain contexts having the slash, because in the official geographic names system, it would be Gulf of America erroneously, but it would be, and therefore, and everywhere else it'd be Gulf of Mexico.
It's really interesting because there are a lot of legal ramifications even at a local level. And, this will be interesting in a court of law just because we're seeing more cartographic lawyers, people with a background in cartography, map making, and survey that you see in specialty areas within law firms, whether it's at a local level, national or international level, that, as a profession.
It'll be kind of interesting. This will be, I think we're fairly familiar with this when we're talking about globes, because, and particularly big maps you used to see when you're in school K through 12, at least in the United States, that very expensive to purchase, and schools don't have the resources and necessarily buy them on a, ever basis. So some of these maps sit around for decades, hung on the wall, and you can date kind of when the map was produced based upon those things like names and whatnot. It's always kind of fun if you're a geography nerd to look at this, go, oh yeah, this is probably from the 70s or whatever it may be. It's going to be interesting that if Jesse's right, I sincerely agree with him. I sincerely hope he is. We both are. That this is a blip of 3 years. I wonder how many maps get produced with this weird, what would hopefully in the future be an anomaly.
I was also wondering how long it will take for AI to catch up with it or to change things. If anyone wants to test that out, it'll be interesting to see, how long AI takes to adapt to a name change in a map and what it produces.
Just a quick note, France24.com suggests or states that the president of Mexico did not say where or when the lawsuit was submitted.
Yeah, I think the BBC reported that as well, that the where and when was not shared.
Yeah, it raises a different interesting geography question of when it comes to things like this, what's the jurisdiction, where are you sued, where are you not sued? That's an interesting for really, really nerdy geographers who are also really, really nerdy legal people. Interesting little question.
It is. I was thinking about fishing rights, that this is where it would come in. Shipping, logistics, blue economy.
Well, I mean, its impacts may be on that, but it's just again a question of how that gets worked out, how a government sues a private company.
You have to have standing. So it's a question of what court can you go to where you would have standing.
Do you have to have standing? Okay.
Anyway.
It's an interesting case study going on in the real world.
Jumping up to the moon, a Spanish company, GMV, is working on Project Lupin, which is going to use existing moon orbiting satellites to aid navigation on the moon's surface. So basically creating the article says GPS, but if it's using existing satellites, which aren't, of course, time-based satellites, then it's going to use some other signal-based system. But still, fun to think about the fact that we have enough satellites orbiting the moon at this point in time between the various countries that we can do differential calculus between signals from them to get our locations.
I suspect a significant percentage of our listenership just went, wait a minute, there's satellites orbiting the moon? It's just, it's one of those things that happens you just don't think about. And it's one of those, what? And then you think about it for 4 seconds, you go, well, I guess that does make sense, but I just
all the landers, just the landers alone, each have a base that they were sent down from. Then, of course, you have LRO and things like that are mapping the moon.
It makes sense. Once I read it, I went, yeah, this is like one of the next steps. It's a pretty big step.
And will it be an LPS? Will it be an LPS, a lunar positioning system, as opposed to an MPS, a Mars positioning system?
Not quite as many satellites there.
No, but just this is it's kind of cool and neat that this is a naming convention we just haven't had to grapple with, because GPS, global positioning system. Obviously, what else would it be?
Well,
it's the globe.
But then, of course, you have the whole fact that that's the U.S.'s name for it.
Right.
And then others have their own names for their own systems, which
they do.
Maybe they would have called it GPS if they had the option, but they won't know the name.
Yeah, I mean, it was the most straightforward, so.
But even if we back off the name, right, they're all GNSSs, right, which is?
Well, it's still a globe, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but would it be an LNSS? I mean, this is an interesting.
It's a globe.
Semantic. It's a semantic geography naming thing in a way.
Yeah, it's tough.
When we say global, do we mean Earth, or do we mean anything that's a sphere?
Those are future questions, right? Because of course Earth is Earth, and there are other planets potentially, maybe in centuries from now, that we'll be going to, and other moons. But the moon is the first moon.
Yeah,
right.
To be very nerdy, they are calling them planets not of Earth.
There you go. So, and one last little note as we roll out of this, since we've been talking about remote sensing, is that as we think about the idea that there's multiple satellites orbiting the moon, right, and all the ones here. So we just had one come back to Earth, Cosmos 485, a satellite launched long ago, like in the 70s, I think it was, that came back. But one of the reason why I mentioned this, we're closing this out, is because with our capabilities to live track things now on sites like N2YO and all these other places, people were watching it orbit as every time, and then they were narrowing down the orbits on which it would actually hit. And they were pretty good at it too. So I happened to watch a couple of them and watch the number of orbits. Like started off, they were tracking a dozen as they were zeroing in on the day. And then it was down to like 3 or 4 And they were pretty good. I mean, it splashed down, they think, in the Indian Ocean. And so that's one of those things, right, that we think about with remote sensing is eventually something has to happen to those things. Either they just kind of orbit around or they come back. And just our ability and in the interest, right? Lots of people were like, oh, I'm going to follow this. And the comments were very good. You're like, oh my gosh, it's going to go over my house, right? Because it was something that was not going to burn up in the atmosphere. So anyway, kind of a little aside to some of our news on remote sensing and stuff is, the what happens when they're done.
Yeah, Emily Calandrelli, the Space Gal, did a special just to tell people if it's not something you were worried about before, you don't need to be worried about it now. It's going to likely land in the ocean since,
Yeah.
Earth is mostly ocean. But she also sparked an interest in it.
And finally, this week in the news, a happy belated birthday to the National Science Foundation. It was created on May 10th, 1950, so it is 75 years old. For those who are not aware, our non-U.S. listeners, the National Science Foundation is a federal agency whose primary mission is essentially to promote, support, largely historically speaking, fund the development of basic scientific and technology research. So these are the kind of things that we all do that necessarily you won't see an immediate return on investment or necessarily obvious out of the gate how that's going to benefit a company. And so that's sort of the baseline stuff for humanity. And then from there, many other agencies run with it and try to figure out, okay, what do you do with it? But also do companies and sort of help get research continuing so that we're on the cutting edge. So it's pretty important in the United States and has been historically. I think it's fair to say that most of the people on this podcast would agree with the statement that it is grossly underfunded and always has been, but it is still very important.
And at danger, including specific areas, including the SBS, is that right? The Social Behavioral Sciences Division is seeing a lot of issues right now. And that's where geography, anthropology, sociology, political science all is actually maybe politicized, not in that one, but the others all are. And since that's a huge part of our understanding of us and our interconnections, so that human environment geography, that human portion of it, let your Congress folks know that you would like to see geography continue to be funded by the National Science Foundation.
And for their celebration, NSF is asking for people, organizations, scientists, people who have been involved with NSF to basically join in and talk about what they've done and the impact NSF has had on their lives. Also, several of the associations, like the Association of American Geographers and AGU, are also asking for geographers and geoscientists to get involved to, showcase how NSF has impacted your field and the work that you've done, data they've collected, technologies they've used or provided. So that will be very exciting to see because NSF is one of those organizations that just always has cool things. It's where you go to if you're a small business or medium-sized business and you are trying to get an idea that's pie in the sky off the ground. That's one of the agencies you could go to that really understood what you were doing. And I talked to an NSF panel last year as part of a professional development. And it was really nice because they said they love geographers because geographers, you know who we are. We like everything. We know a little bit of everything. We're holistic. So they really were asking for geographers to be involved in all aspects of NSF because we just get it. We just understand the world and how it's connected.
So happy birthday, NSF.
And to keep going with it, to connect it back to the previous thing we were talking about with NASA, these are two of the places that you go to whenever you talk about basically any of the things that get us to today in terms of not just in the US, but around the world, in terms of technologies, our understanding the world, basically everything short of what NIH covers. NASA and NSF have really kind of been there as the backbone to make sure that we get there. We get everything from microwave ovens from NASA to, I don't know, I've already forgotten the whole list that I was just looking at yesterday of NSF things.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's world leading science and has been for decades. Yeah.
But I'm blanking. I hate blanking. Great things. And that's it for the news.
In the web corner, keeping the theme of NSF posted a facilities coloring book. And I think it is awesome, not just for young people, but also for any, adults out there, because it really goes through the types of facilities they have. And a lot of them are geospatial. They're for collecting data. And so, if you've had an interest in doing something fun and relaxing that also talks about the different facilities, including like the McMurdo station and their very large arrays, different places around the world, give it a look. It's a fun way to promote what they're doing. And I'd also encourage people, coloring pages are pretty easy to make. Think about making ones for your own organization to promote what you do.
If I had one critique of their very nice coloring book, is they really should have put a map, because they have all these great facilities all over the globe and different states and stuff like that. And it'd been really cool to have a map you could color in too.
With all the dots for each of the facilities. Yeah.
Right.
Of course, we want you to head out and check out any events that you might have in your neighborhood or online. I don't know. Do we have any events for this week?
No events, but we have a whole bunch of the summer events coming up that will be going on soon. So if anyone's wanted to do the Geotech conference or any of those, now's the time to get registered and get ready to attend in June.
The Geotech conference being the National Geospatial Technology Center of Excellence, which is it still in Kentucky?
It's in Kentucky, but the conference is going to be in Gettysburg, I think, or around that area. And the USGIF conference, GeoInc conference going on in St. Louis this summer as well, along with the, of course, ESRI user conference and many others.
But we're in the in-between times before the ones that are putting out calls for papers. Of course, if you'd like us to add your event to the podcast, send us an email to podcast@veryspatial.com.
If you'd like to reach us individually, I can be reached at sue@veryspatial.com.
I can be reached at barb@veryspatial.com.
You can reach me at frank@veryspatial.com, or you can follow me on any of the social medias at NoJoPar that I belong to.
You can reach me at KindaSpatial, and of course, you can find all of our contact information over at veryspatial.com/contact.
As always,
We're the folks from VerySpatial.
Thanks for listening.
And we'll see you in a couple weeks.